All right, welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Migwe. Now we get into yet another conversation, and now we are talking about International Wildlife Day, and I am joined by Dr. John Kipkorir, Chumo, who is the Conservation Secretary at the State Department for Wildlife. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Mwiki. My name is John Chumo, as you've been told.
Yes.
Coming from the State Department for Wildlife, under the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife.
Yes.
And I'm happy that today you've hosted us.
Yes.
And more so on matters to do with wildlife in this country.
Yes.
And in particular about the Wildlife Day that is normally celebrated on 3rd of March of every year.
Tell us about that, the International Wildlife Day.
I mean, International Wildlife Day is a day that is set internationally by what you call the CITES Convention in International of Endangered on Trade on Endangered Species, which was actually done in 1973 for purposes of celebrating the wildlife sector in the whole world, and especially bringing awareness on the importance of the wildlife and looking at the benefits of the same to human beings, and in particular also governments, and ensuring that what do they do in terms of the economy, and bringing awareness, also creating awareness to the people of this world that other than the human beings, we have livestock, and then in particular again we have now the wildlife, and they need to coexist with the human beings. And the other thing is actually to look at the challenges these animals are going through, because if you look at currently, there are, for example, 3 major issues that the wildlife are actually going through. One of it is actually the climate change. We are talking about human-wildlife conflict. We are talking about pollution of, the habitats or habitat loss in the parks, the game reserves, for example, the sanctuaries, and also the conservancies. So these are the things that we discuss and look at, for example, during such kind of day. It is, as I said, celebrated all over. Now in Kenya, in the whole world today, on that way we shall be able to celebrate it in Geneva, in Switzerland, and in Kenya we are going to do it in Baringo, a place called Marigat, and in particular a place called Kipkorir in Lake Bogoria, area. That doesn't mean that we are only going to do it in Lake Bogoria. It's going to be done across the country, in all the 47 counties, so that every county will be able to organize a function and have stakeholders, bring on board the people of Kenya, wherever they are, and start discussing. Like for example, in Kenya,
yes,
as I said, we value it so much because, about 10% of our GDP is actually brought in courtesy of tourism. And for every 10 tourists that jet into Kenya, about 8 of them would want, for example, to go to the park. The other 2% would want, the other 2 would probably look at, they want to go to look at other touristic sites, like for example our very beautiful beaches along the coastal region. But then others actually come, the first thing they would ask is, where do we have the big 5? Where do we get the lions, for example? Where do we see the elephants, the rhinos, and the others? So, and of course, those are just found in our parks. They are found in our game reserves and sanctuaries, and also in those private conservancies. So that tells you, if you are talking about 10%, almost 10% of our GDP, that's around 450 something billion of Kenyan money that is actually, or revenue that is actually accrued from tourism, and in particular because of the wildlife that we have. And to tell you, Mr. Mikwi, is that as a country, we are endowed with wildlife resources across the country, and that is why we would actually jealously want to guard,
yes,
because Without them, our economy will not actually be able to be enriched. Number two is that we have that heritage that we have what it takes. Other people don't have it. And we don't take it for granted.
And this day also now brings to the fore the importance of why the public needs to take wildlife conservation seriously.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is. Like we are actually saying, for example, that this is actually about wildlife conservation finance. That's the theme, wildlife conservation finance. And talking about the people and planet, you know.
Yes.
I mean, you know, we are saying that it's a clarion call that wildlife conservation finance investing in people and planet. And therefore, we can see the key word there is planet and people.
Yes.
And therefore, we are seeing as much as we are not just conserving, you know, animals for nothing. We want, for example, wherever you are, whether it is in Bomet, whether it is in Lamu, whether it is in somewhere in you know, Elgeyo Marakwet, we are saying that those animals that you see, they are very important for us, because look at this. We had also to agree that there's some of them are now endangered. There were the animals which were there maybe 30, 50 years ago, and they're just extinct because of the factors I've mentioned. But then we really then want to actually say that there is a reason why we need to take care of. I've said the first thing that we really need to take care of our animals is our heritage. These are the animals that that God gave us as a country. And number two, we know that it is not just in vain. These animals, courtesy of tourism, we get a lot of money. We get a lot of resources. And therefore, we really need to jealously guard as a country through many ways. One, through the policies that we do. Number three is that awareness, so that when an animal, for example, by mistake, you know, gets out of the park, we don't kill them. Because, you know, in the past, when you see, for example, maybe a lion, or for example, a leopard, or even you know, a hyena, people start running against it and, you know, killing it. But once we appreciate that these are actually animals that God has given us, the next thing that we know is that we need to coexist with them. And then the next thing to do is that when we see, you know, an antelope, or we don't say this one in terms of food, we don't say, we would actually call KWS, the you know, the staff, the rangers that are ready to come and, you know, capture the same animals and take them back to where they belong. So those are the things. But you see, if you don't have that, you know, awareness creation, we don't see the importance of these animals, then you find, for example, that whenever they, you know, stray, then the next thing to do is just to look for you know, cookie and start, you know, hunting them.
Yeah, you've talked of the theme now. How does it reflect Kenya's efforts or approach to conservation?
I mean, first of all, I want to tell you that Kenya as a country has a lot of, first of all, we have very clear policies. We have, within our constitution, it's very clear on the importance of, you know, why we need to take care of our animals. Number two is that we have the, you know, the Wildlife Act. We have even the other environmental, like for example, MCA, or Environment and Coordination Act. I mean, we have what it takes to really take care of our animals in terms of the policies and legislations. Number two is that we if you look at even the theme, as I've said, I've talked about ensuring that this conservation should actually give us money. That's why, for example, we encourage very many people to participate. You see, when we have a wildlife, when we have the animals taken care of, whether it is in Masai Mara, whether it is in Amboseli or Savu or whatever, then the people living around, obviously they get better because they will be able to do business and actually get money out of it. The trade around there and business will actually be, you know, up as compared to other places. Number two is that we try as much as possible to invest in, you know, when we say investing in people in this case, is that the places where we have this wildlife, we obviously open up roads, infrastructure for the people of that region. We also ensure that when, for example, when we have that road, we have infrastructure being done. The people who are actually involved in that place are the people living around there, and therefore issues of financing becomes anything in terms of everybody being involved. And that's why the most important thing is we are saying that we don't take care of the animals alone, as in just those animals should coexist with the people.
Yes.
People should see the importance of those animals. And in any case, I'm saying, if you are seeing an animal without, we want to bring tourists around, and once they are there, the people will be buying goods and merchandise around and all that. So those are the kind of things we are actually talking about.
Now, Kenya is also a signatory of the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. What role, how does it reflect, now that it's coinciding with the 50th anniversary of CITES, how relevant is this celebration to also this 50th anniversary of CITES?
Now, thank you so much. As I said, I think when I began, I said that CITES was began and back in 1973. Even the day for celebrating this is also around that time. And therefore, we are saying that as a signatory to CITES as a country, it is very important for us to as we celebrate the 50 years. One is that we are a signatory to it. And what does that mean? It means, for example, that we take care of animals. Like, for example, issues of poaching.
Yes.
When you are a signatory to CITES, it means, for example, that you need to minimize or get rid of poaching as much as possible. So we are actually ensuring that, so that we become members of, we continue enjoying membership of CITES. It means that we need to reduce and get rid of the poaching. Number 3 is ensure that we take care of our wildlife in the country, and ensure that there is no trade. This thing of we are talking about poaching and selling of some of these products as coming from the animals. You have heard that in the past, for example, there used to be people who will just be able to kill maybe the elephants and take the tusks, ivory, and those kind of things. Others would be able to even kill pangolins and many other things. They're both fauna and flora, and therefore we are actually saying that we should we join the other members and the rest of the world, that we fight against poaching, we fight against the trade on endangered species of our products and all these other things. So as a country, we are up to date in terms of the requirements and the standards that CITES have actually set.
How about addressing the conflict between human-wildlife conflict?
And that is actually why I say that as a country, human-wildlife conflict is one of those I think I said one of those challenges and issues that we are addressing as a country, because one is that these animals are actually found within the premises of wananchi. If you look at, for example, areas like Masai Mara, we live, we have the Masai Mara, and next to it are actually conservancies. Next to it also are people's residence. There are people who are doing farming. And by the way, human-wildlife conflict comes up with the issue. We address issues to do with the predation, killing of animals. I mean the livestock, the sheep, the goats, and all that. The other thing is people also get injured because of when you are attacked by a hyena, for example, or any other, or even a elephant, then the people lose their their lives. Others they get injured, and others, for example, lose property in terms of crops and houses and all that.
Yes.
But when that one is said and done, we say that as a country we have a plan. And if you look at our Wildlife Act, it clearly tells us what we are supposed to do. Ensuring that, for example, we have enough rangers, we have enough, we have some of the places that are critical, are fenced, and other places we do a lot of awareness and creation. If you go to some of the places, whether it's Safo or some places in Masai Mara and some other parts in this country, we want to bring on board the coexistence. I mean, we don't want to have a barrier as such, like for example, the way we would actually put fences. But if, for example, people and animals, I mean, people and the wildlife can coexist.
Yes.
You know the boundaries. You know you don't go beyond this point, and the animals also don't come beyond this point, and then you just coexist. You don't have enmity. Then that becomes a way of dealing with them. And therefore, that's part. Yeah.
There's no encroaching.
There's no encroaching on both sides. And by the way, what are the causes of human-wildlife conflict? You know, the animals are still wherever they were supposed to be.
Yes.
But you and me have decided that you want to, because of the population pressure, you just decide now to grow by doing farming. You want to, you know, increase your acreage, and therefore you encroach into some of these parks and game reserves, and even some of those forests. Number two is that we are becoming, you know, we want to put everything on, you know, as concrete. We want to start putting up town areas where there were initially migratory routes. Look at, for example, a place like Athi River. You see, that was a migratory route. And if you go across it today, you see a lot of, you know, houses and buildings coming up. Now, what are you saying? You are actually blocking those migratory, you know, corridors. And by the way, Mr. Miki, I want to tell you, like an animal like elephant, if it passes there 40 years ago and it wants to go back, it's an animal that is very, you know, has a lot of intelligence. So what we want to do is to pass the same place. Yes. And if that place was, you know, a forest 30 or 40 years ago, today the place is now full of houses. What would happen? You have also put a lot of, you know, greenhouses because you are actually a farmer. Now it will just pass with it, and it will just be able to cause a lot of conflict. You'll be, your property will get lost, and somehow, so we are sorry, some people would be killed. And that is actually what we are saying. There are many factors that are now bringing in that conflict. Yes. And we really need to actually work as a country, as people of this country, to ensure that we minimize those, you know, causal effects of conflicts. As I said, you know, issues of pressure, population pressure, we're encouraging issues of climate change. Climate change is also a real thing. You remember, for example, the last 2 or so years, we had a very serious drought in this country. And, you know, when the pressure of, when there is no water, for example, when there is no forage, for example, what would happen? The animals would want to come out of those places looking for water, and also looking for forage. And in that case, they start fighting and, you know, looking for, you know, fighting for the few resources between the human beings and also your livestock and them. And that's why we have those conflicts. So as a country, but we have actually tried as much as possible to mitigate climate change as a country. We also try as much as possible to ensure that we bring awareness to and capacity building to the people around that place, and also to put policies as a country, so that we can actually say, let's do fiscal planning. If a county is doing a fiscal planning, ensure that they actually provide migratory corridors so that they can, animals cannot be interfered with.
As we come to a close, what would you want Kenyans to learn from the International Wildlife Day that is happening on the 3rd of March?
One thing that I want to say, as a country, we are very pleased to have a country that is endowed with all these resources. We want to guard it jealously. We want to say that as just like, you know, I've talked about tourism giving us about 10% of our GDP. And that therefore means that without wildlife, this country will not have visitors coming on board. And by the way, we are not doing badly. As per last year, we are doing about 2.4 million tourists. And I know this year we have started it very well. And just like the same way you saw His Excellency the President and our Minister for Tourism, Rebecca Miano, over the last weekend, you saw we were receiving many tourists.
Yes.
That was a good sign, that actually even this year might actually go to 3 or so million. And by 2027, we should be actually doing almost 5 million. And you know what it means. It translates to good GDP.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that as a country, I want to first of all welcome the people of Kenya to participate in this World Wildlife Day, whether they are wherever they are. Where they are in their own aspects, whether they are in school, they should also celebrate. They are in colleges, they should also celebrate in the counties, in the sub-counties. And for the national event that is now happening that is going to happen in Baringo, I want to call upon on behalf of the minister and also the PS and the State Department for Wildlife to invite the people of Kenya to come in big numbers, so that we can be able to celebrate the World Wildlife Day in Baringo, that is in Lake Bogoria. County of Baringo, for example, is endowed with a lot of resources, whether it is the animals that we are talking about, the wildlife. There are some wildlife that you don't actually find anywhere, and even the flamingos that are actually found in Lake Bogoria, and those cages from that point. And we are saying that let's come and take stock.
All right.
Let's say, for example, that how many, because we shall be able to discuss at that point, how many, for example, animals do we have in terms of how are we doing in terms of numbers. And we also address these issues that we have actually mentioned. The issue of drought, climate change, issues of population, pollution, and issues to do with human-wildlife conflict. And it will be a big thing. Other than that, we are going to really sample a lot of culture in terms of songs, entertainment, and generally celebrating our heritage as a country.
Indeed. Thank you so much for making time to come on Good Morning Kenya and talking about the International Wildlife Day and the celebrations that are to follow on the 3rd of March in Baringo. That is Dr.John Kipkorir Chumo, who is a Conservation Secretary at the State Department for Wildlife, speaking to us about the International Wildlife Day. This is where we end this conversation. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Mike Migu, but get ready now because Entertainment Thursday is about to happen. Stay with us.